In today's time, in 21st century, if there is one skill or one talent that you can really work on and develop that can really take care of your mental and physical health, I would say both. Because today we are not really worried about smallpox or some of the disastrous diseases like infectious diseases like plague or something. It is emotional intelligence. If you're able to improve upon your emotional intelligence, this is going to have a huge impact in your longevity, in your overall well being, and your relationship with others, and more importantly, the relationship with your own self. Now, before understanding what is emotional intelligence, let's just decode what is emotions. Now, there is a saying, don't kill the messenger just because you do not like the message. Now, emotions are these messengers coming with a message. And your emotional intelligence is your ability to understand and decode the message these emotions are bringing. So, for example, let's say, I'll see multiple parents with their children. Let's say if the child falls down or hits some object or get hit quite badly. I see some parents, they go and hit that object that hurt the child. And suddenly the child was crying, and suddenly when he sees that the parent is hitting that object, that because of this object my child is hurt. And suddenly the child feels, okay, so it is not because of me, it is something else that created this problem with me. And so somewhere the child feels free. A child feels it's not my problem, it's something else. And suddenly you're also giving a message to the child that that object was reason you are not responsible. So we are training that child in the wrong manner, and this is one of the ways we train our children or the future generations not to be emotionally intelligent. So in fact, if the child gets hit, maybe we should say, yes, I understand your pain, it is hurting you. Now what did you learn from this? Maybe how can we avoid getting hurt like this again? Maybe is there some better way that you can also be engaged in your adventurous activities at the same time being safe? So these are the questions we need to ask and understand. The child is responsible. If you keep doing things like this, you will get hurt, and we can't keep blaming the objects that he's going and hitting consciously or unconsciously. But somewhere there is a huge contributing actions that he's doing to get himself into that situation where he's getting hurt. So this ability to understand where am I responsible, that also plays a big role in emotional intelligence. Now, see, you see the word responsibility, right? Ability to respond. Yeah, one of the best examples is knee jerk reactions. When doctor hits that knee hammer on the knee, suddenly the knee just jerks. So instead of giving a knee jerk reaction, you are realizing you have the ability to choose your response. That ability to choose your response is also your emotional intelligence. So these are what we call it as emotional intelligence. And when we become more and more aware and alert and intelligence to have that laser sharp focus on understanding what is this emotion trying to convey, what is the message this emotion is trying to convey. And if we catch that message, you will be way ahead, and you will be way more uh, resilient, in harmony, and you feel that there is an aspect inside of me where I feel I am in control. And this is one area that will have a huge impact in your longevity and again your wellness and your happiness. Now, why do I say if you are able to enhance your emotional intelligence skills, it is going to be one of your best skill set for 21st century? Because today you see most of the other intelligence, like we have this artificial intelligence, most of the other things that are required from you are actually done by machines or softwares or computers. So all you have to do is take care of your inner being. Everything else is going to be taken care by the machines and softwares or robots or artificial intelligence. So in spite of all this, if you are not able to have peace within yourself, then what's the point? You see so many people living in the best comfortable situations but still miserable in their with their mental health. But that's because their emotional intelligence is not the best. And on the other hand, you see people living in the most chaotic situations, most unsanitized situations, but somewhere there is a happiness inside of them. And that because they have made peace with what is happening. So emotional intelligence is also your ability to make peace with your reality in the proper manner. And also, when I say peace with your reality, doesn't mean that you don't have to act upon something or change something. It is about, yes, this is what it is, but I take the what is the message from this? Should I make it better? And if I am having the possibility to make it better, let me do what is important. And if I cannot do anything, it's okay. If it's raining, there is nothing much I can do. Maybe I need to see where is an umbrella, where is a raincoat, or whatever is the weather proofing that you need to take care of. But if I keep complaining about the rain, then I'm reaching nowhere. So this is also the emotional intelligence is giving you the action inputs where your action input should rightly go. And if you take anxiety, if you take stress, it is all different diplomatic words for fear coming in different vibrational effects inside of you. Anxiety is low grade fear that keeps recurring. Stress is another word for fear. Now, what does fear say? What is the message this messenger called fear is trying to tell you? Fear is coming and telling you, you need to be prepared. You need to act on something and be prepared if in case something goes wrong. What will be your plan B and C? What can you do about it? Are you prepared if this worst case scenario has happened? So instead of working on or preparing myself for the worst case scenario or something else, I am constantly worrying, what if that happens? What if that happens? Then I am reaching nowhere. I'm getting stuck. And this is what we call anxiety. This is what we call mental health issues. And that can lead to many other internal health problems. It first shows up in sleep. And one of the reasons why people say, see, sleep is one of the most natural gifts. If you're alive, you must be able to sleep. But when you go through a lot of insecurity issues, insecurity means I'm not just talking about physical security, I'm talking about emotional security. If you're not feeling safe at your work, if you're not feeling safe at your relationship, if you're not just feeling safe with the systems and surroundings that you are exposed to, maybe you feel, oh, I don't think I can relax. I don't think I can let go. I don't think I can just close my eyes and just, put my body to a good recovery rest. So this is one of the first signs that you see in people when they are not able to let go, and when they are in constant fear, and when they are not focused on what I need to do, instead constantly focused on what if this happens, and they feel helpless. And when they feel helpless, they suddenly get into that form of learned helplessness. And that learned helplessness, one of them is they feel stressed, they feel not able to relax, they feel not able to sleep, or they become a very light sleeper on a constant run. So this is why when you are able to enhance upon your emotional intelligence, you are able to have this greatest power called, in Vedic terminologies, in Sanskrit, there is this word called Viveka. The word Viveka means, it can be loosely translated in English as discriminate or distinguish. But your ability to see what is the truth and what is not the truth. And the thing with emotion, emotion is the truth that you perceive. It need not be the real truth. The real truth could be something else. Okay, let's see, I'm having a need to go and enjoy the beautiful garden, and suddenly it starts raining. Oh, it's raining, then I will not be able to enjoy the garden the way it is. Maybe you may not be able to enjoy the garden the way you imagined and you fixated. But maybe there are people who love the rains. But this idea that I wanted to enjoy that garden in a beautiful sunshine, in a good weather, now that reality is broken. And because that reality is broken, I perceive what I want, I'm not able to get it. And because I'm not able to get what I want, something is missing in my life. And because something is missing in my life, then I feel I'm not able to good enough. I'm not able to feel good enough. So that line of thought, that I'm not able to go beyond, okay, it's raining, maybe it'll stop after some time. Maybe another time will come. Maybe rains are very important. And if it's sunshine all the time, it'll make any place into a desert. So there is always two sides to everything. So this Viveka is to be able to understand the reality in its neutral manner. And that is one of the greatest gifts. This Viveka is so important so that we do not fall upon wrong misconceptions or wrong beliefs. So there's this word called confirmed bias. Now, one of the best examples for confirmed bias, I have a friend, especially people living in India, they know how important watching a cricket match is. So whenever he watches Indian cricket team playing, he has to sit in one particular corner in one particular chair, and he will not use the toilet. And because once he used the toilet when the match was going on and India lost the game, and multiple times he sat in that chair without going to the toilet and India won the game. And so he thinks his bladder control ability is what is making the Indian cricket team play their best. And he thinks all the efforts people like Virat Kohli or Rohit Sharma is doing is because of his bladder control. This is called confirmed bias, because our mind likes to connect the most randomest things. And we start saying, this is happening because of this. And we call science when we are able to really connect the dots, the cause and effect dot. When we are really able to connect it, that is what we call science. And if we do the wrong connection of the dots, we call it magic, we call it, the wrong belief systems, or certain things that are not the reality. So our mind is so good at connecting the wrong dots. I've seen so many people, they are in a belief. Once I had a patient, called me and said, and they come with a huge list of their past medical reports, and they went through a lot. But actually, when you look at them in the first sign, if you do not know their medical history, you actually think they're okay, they look quite fine. But then, doctor, these are my conditions, these are my past 2 decades of medical reports. They'll have all their blood reports, all the diagnosis that would have happened, all the accidents they went through, and their uh, recovery surgical interventions that happened. And they would come and say, doctor, I am looking for that best doctor or a good doctor who can tell me what's wrong with my body. Now, the fact that they are asking what's wrong with their body, somewhere they are already convinced something is wrong. They just want to find all the reasons. So, when they ask this question, even if you say things are actually fine, you really don't have to worry like the way you are. No, that's not true, because they are convinced. There is this confirmed bias because they went through so many unhealthy things or medical interventions that they had to go through, and they compare others didn't have to go through, but I went through. So, that means there is something terribly wrong with me. They connect the dots in the wrong manner. And then, even if you tell them actually things are fine, they will not believe. They will go for the next doctor who can tell them what is wrong with them because of that confirmed biased belief. So, when you have that Viveka, yes, this happened, but my body has an intelligence to heal. And I also have the right technologies and resources to go and take the right medical care. Maybe this is not the end of the world. Maybe this is just temporary thing. There are so many people who got diagnosed with the worst and worst terminal illness, but they still overcame that and outgrown that and lived long enough in spite of the ultimatums given by the doctors that you may have 6 months or 1 year. So this ability to discriminate, sometimes, I remember there is this a very well-known author, Mary Sapir. She wrote a book called Tell Yourself a Better Lie. Now, it's like uh, your emotions are not the reality. Emotions is the reality that you are perceiving. And whatever you perceive, and the thing is, your perception is actually a choice. It can be a choice if you consciously work on it, but otherwise, it will become a knee jerk reaction. So that is why today we live in a world where we are constantly bombarded with triggers that can make us feel insecure. And if you read the news, be prepared. It's one of the best recipes to get into anxiety, because news, if there are 100 things happening in this world, 90 to 95% of the things what they're talking about is what are the things that are going wrong. If something goes wrong with the flight, there will be millions of flights that are landing safely, but there's just that one flight, it had a turbulence and it created some problems, and that will be your things that will stay in your mind. And the way your brain is designed for survival and recreation, and the fact that you look for what is wrong, you have a natural tendency for this negative bias. It is more and more important that we put our energy and focus on understanding, okay, that is happening, but give it a benefit of doubt. There are many other things that are happening in the world. And when people say today we live in one of the worst times, but actually we are living in one of the best times. And when you say best time, so recently I had a patient from Germany, and this patient is coming with a lot of burnout and other health issues with low immunity, and she's taking immunosuppressants and some hormones and having severe pain and depressive tendencies. So, and then she's really worried about climate change and many things that are going on. Yes, climate change could be a concern. There's no questions, doubts, or asked about that. But if you look back in the history of humanity, and okay, then I asked, you're a woman, you're able to travel all the way from another continent to this continent safely by your own, and you have the choice to make that decision, and you could reach another continent in less than 10, 15 hours. Tell me which other times in history that was possible. And you have food all three times of the day. Yes, we are having other problems, no doubts with that. But if we are constantly focusing on wrong things that are going through, and if that is what you're feeding constantly, and that is what your mind is always going to respond with, and that's what you're feeding is very important. So I told people, whenever they have issues with overthinking, anxiety, and they feel helpless, first thing is get rid of reading the news. Because if there is something important, you will get that information somewhere or the other. But if we constantly engage in this, it is going to create and make you feel, okay, there are some problems happening in some parts of the world, and it's just going to make you feel helpless. And when you feel helpless, what is happening is you are not able to be productive where you can be or where you could be. You're also missing out on the opportunity of where all you could realize your creative potential. And all of this compound, and suddenly it impacts your mental health, it impacts your hormones, because your emotions will impact your hormonal releases in your body. So let's say I am happy now, my energy levels are different. If I am sad or grieving, my energy level is very low. So if somebody comes with a problem, my response to that, if somebody comes with a problem, my response to that will be different when I'm happy and when I'm sad. So this, your state of your mind, which is a result of how you train your emotional intelligence, will decide how you're going to react and respond to the world. And that's why emotional intelligence is one of the most important skill we all must work upon. And I wish all the schools teach their kids how to improve your emotional intelligence, how to have that difficult conversations. And today, when you look people who are depressed or having a lot of mental health problems, one of the things that you will see with them is they had an utopian idea. The utopian means an imaginary world that will never happen, that you can be happy all the time. And that is not possible. There will be ups and downs. There will be an ebb and tide. There will be night and day. There will be rainy days and there will be sunny days, and there will be stormy days and there will be calm days. And that's how the universe is. That's how the world is. So to make peace with that change is inevitable, and change is the only thing that is permanent. This makes a very important thing. And our ability to deal with uncertainty is going low and low because we created so many technologies that is able to predict and give us a lot of freedom and comfort. And suddenly, when things are not going the way we want, we feel helpless and insecure, and that creates a lot of physical health problems as well. So that's why emotional health plays a very important role in your overall well-being. So one of the questions that I keep getting asked is emotional intelligence inborn, or is it something that you can develop? It's both. I've seen a lot of children, at a very young age, there is a lot of fearlessness and confidence in them. And I also see children at their very young age, they have a lot of fears. And if you ask, are these fears inbuilt? Did they get it by birth? Or, did they, sometimes some children out of birth, they might have some inbuilt fears. Where is this coming from? Our science and research, we are yet to reach there. What is it creating that fears in some people? They have phobias with some people. But the point is, genetics we cannot change. But environment also plays a lot of role in your emotional intelligence. And environment is something you do have a possibility to change that. And today we live in one of the best times to help us our own way to improve our emotional intelligence. There are various methods. And how to do that? It is to improve the communication with your own self. A good emotional intelligence means you have a better communication with yourself. Just ask, where all do you think you are not good at? And if you look back, it is because somebody told you, or you came to a judgment. I tried this twice and it didn't work out, so I'm not good at that. Or, because I am born or brought up in this way, so people are always going to look at me in a very bad way. Maybe there is some truth to that, because yes, racism do exist in different parts of the world. But irrespective of that, at that time, that doesn't mean it changes who you are. That doesn't mean you are not good enough. That doesn't mean there is something wrong with you. It's just that some other people have a different perception of who you are. That is their problem. And this ability to have better, meaningful, intelligent conversations with yourself, and giving the right benefit of doubt to your wrong confirmed biases, this is also emotional intelligence, and these are skills you can develop. It's just like you improve your ability to have conversations with others, you improve your ability to have better conversations, better, meaningful, non critical, but at the same time asking the right questions to yourself. If I have a belief, oh, I'm okay, let me tell you one of my favorite stories. Once, I always thought women can't drive. This was one of my beliefs, and I'm very ashamed to say this. One of the reasons why I say this, I see my mother. When I was growing up, when I was very young, like 5, 6 years old, I used to sit in the back seat, and my grandfather used to train my mother to drive. So him and he is trying to teach his daughter how to drive. And whenever my mother, stumbled upon or pressed brake abruptly, my grandfather would get very angry. Like, you can't just drive. This was, and my mother finally gave up. She can't drive. And then I saw this with two other women saying that, oh, driving is a big challenge. And also living in India, sometimes men used to come and say, oh, it's women, they can't drive well. You see these comments. And once I went to Europe and I went to Germany, and once I was picked up by in a taxi driven by a woman. And going in that autobahn, I was going about 150 kilometers per hour in a taxi driven by a woman. And oh my God, that was like completely shattering my understanding. And this was like, okay, so it's just an upbringing problem. So that, you need to get many of your beliefs shattered like that. Some of the wrong beliefs that we get. So that is when we realize, okay, so like that, we also come to an understanding. Somebody told you you're not good at that, you're not good at this, you're always going to end up having problems, you can't recognize or memorize certain things, you're not good with money, you're not good with relationships, you're not good with certain household things. Nothing is rocket science. These are skills that can be developed. And you just need to ask the right questions. Maybe I may not be an Olympic champion in keeping the household things. Maybe I'm not an Olympic champion in driving the best car the way Michael Schumacher could drive. But I could drive quite decently well. I could keep up the household things quite well. So, this idea that you need to talk yourself way out of your limiting beliefs, this is also a very good emotional intelligence. So, this is where emotional intelligence is, you need to improve upon your conversations. How you talk to yourself. You need to talk to yourself like you're talking to your best friend, not talking to the worst critic. So, this is also an important factor, and nobody told us about this. And usually, we have this thinking, if I talk to myself in a very friendly manner, maybe I will get too complacent and comfortable and I will not improve upon myself. Because all the time, we hear this, spare the rod and you spoil the child. These are the kind of words that we are brought upon with. Tough love is very important. Yes, tough love is important. Criticism is very important. But if it is going to impact your ability to realize your highest potential, if it's going to impact your ability to explore your best creative self, then that is quite toxic. So, if I am telling myself, okay, I didn't do my best, what did I learn from that? Maybe I have to improve upon my certain behaviors. Maybe I have to eliminate some of my behaviors that is influencing my productivity. So then maybe I have to look upon very naked with myself and see this is not good for me. So this is also emotional intelligence. Now let's give it a try. I told about emotions are messengers encrypted with a secret message. Now, what is that message? Now, the word guilt. Now, guilt is a very powerful word. It's a very powerful emotion. Many people say, "Oh, I feel guilty." Some people, they do a mistake and then they are accused and they feel very guilty and they are guilty for the rest of their life and they go into self destructive habits. Now, what does the word guilt actually talk about? Guilt means I had better standards in my life and I didn't live up to that. So, something is not right upon me. So, what was that standard that you had? Is that standard quite decent standard, or is it something like an utopian, unimaginable standard that you put upon yourself? So, first question is, am I putting very high, unimaginary standards upon myself? And second question, maybe I have to reduce my standards and see what is more realistic. And second thing, how can I improve the quality of my thinking and my action so that I align with my standards. So, guilt is actually telling you, look into your standards and see how you can match your standards. So, on one hand, we lived in a time when, because of religion has been one of the best mediums to induce guilt in people. If you do something bad, there is a guy in the top of the heaven watching you and keeping an account. And if you do this, he's going to fry you in a hot boiling oil. And if you do great, and he's going to reward you, all of that. But whether that's right or wrong, the question is, guilt is about what are your standards, and that is what it is talking about. Sometimes it could be too difficult for me to live up to those standards. There is a lot of things that I need to work upon myself, and I have a lot of things that everybody, when they look into this, what is it that I need to look into myself? And that ability to look into yourself, maybe I am far away from working on it, maybe there is still some more way, but the idea that you progress on yourself, that this is where I would like to improve upon myself, that is also emotional intelligence. And these are skills that can be totally developed. Maybe if you had a great upbringing, loving parents, loving surroundings, loving friends, where you did not get bullied, but at the same time you saw a lot of hardship and struggle, it will make you emotionally strong and emotionally intelligent. And at the same time, when I say loving, please don't misunderstand comfort. You see a lot of kids who are growing up in very comfortable, they never see any difficulty in their life, and suddenly they face some difficult situations and they crumble. And it's very difficult to see happy and fulfilled people who never underwent difficult situations. These difficult situations make them realize life is not just always easy. There will be a lot of ups and downs, but your ability to deal with this and talk yourself out of confirmed bias and low self-limiting thoughts and overcome that. And yes, this is what is happening right now, but this is not permanent. This is just a temporary thing. And that is what is emotional intelligence. And that is something we all can help and work and improve upon ourselves. So the connection between your emotional health and physical health, this is so, we are just scratching the surface. Now we call it mind body connection and psychosomatic illness or psychosomatic disorders. See, mind has a powerful influence on your hormonal health. If you are in a stage where I am thinking good and I'm feeling relaxed, then your heart rate is quite good. Your resting heart rate has a high correlation with your thoughts. If I'm constantly thinking of, oh my God, how am I going to deal with that? I'm being overwhelmed with things, your heart rate can go up. And when your heart rate goes up consistently, and then your resting heart rate is also going up, and then your heart rate variability is also influenced, this is going to have a huge impact in your overall well being. Because this is also saying that your adrenals are overworked, and this leads to burnout later on, and this leads to high blood pressure, metabolic disorders. Stress is also a very important trigger point for high glycemic index. And when your glycemic index is always high, insulin resistance happens, and pre-diabetes, and then diabetes leads to many other metabolic disorders. So it's all that one single thread. So if I'm able to pull that one single thread of emotional health, it has a huge impact. So if I say, okay, I'm feeling very insecure or over anxious, the tendency of overeating or binge eating can happen, or cravings can happen, addiction problems can happen. So, deep inside, it's all about your emotional intelligence and your hormones. There is a huge connection over there. So, every time I see conditions of autoimmune health, arthritis, or it could be irritable bowel syndrome, ulcerative colitis, multiple sclerosis, there is a history of unresolved emotional trauma. It could be trauma or it could be an emotional issue. They didn't resolve it and they suppressed it. And the body is, the word eavesdropping. Eavesdropping means there are two people sitting and talking to each other, and I'm slowly listening to them, and I'm trying to understand what are they actually doing. I'm getting very curious, what exactly are they talking. The same way, every cell in our body is eavesdropping our thoughts. And these thoughts, depending on how I am putting the meaning to these thoughts, am I feeling good about these thoughts, or am I feeling bad about these thoughts, am I feeling sad or angry about these thoughts? If I'm consistently in that pattern, the dominant emotional pattern will always have an impact on your body. So if I'm angry consistently, my body will have its own symptoms. If I'm relaxed and quite fulfilled and happy, my body will have its own, reality of that. So emotions are like the software that has an influence on the hardware that is happening in the body. So this is how the influence is. So that's why every time I see burnout, autoimmune health conditions, in Ayurveda we call it problems of high vata, whether it's constipation, whether it's lack of sleep, whether it's pain in different parts of the body, fibromyalgia, for example, ulcerative colitis, for example. I see a lot of it, psoriasis, allergies, eczema, skin issues. All of this, I'm not discounting the fact that there are many physical causes. The diet can play an important role, genetics can play an important role, exposure to toxins can play an important role. But a huge, that white elephant, that big elephant that we are missing is the emotional health. So whenever I get these patients, this is one of the stories in my early practices. During my first years of Ayurvedic practice, I got a patient who was suffering with serious, like very difficult psoriatic arthritis. She couldn't wear any clothes that expose her arms, so she also always had to cover her arms because the psoriasis was very bad, and she couldn't wash dishes or hands whenever her hands was very difficult, like because of the psoriatic lesions. And she's afraid to go out, so she's completely covered. And she went to different doctors, and many doctors, many dermatologists gave her different levels of cortisone, and this steroids will help to subside, but then it can relapse and manifest later on. So then somebody told her, go and try Ayurveda, this could really help with your psoriasis. And then she comes to me and describes the whole story of how many doctors, how many dermatologists she has been with. And then suddenly, usually as a doctor, when you get a patient like this who tells you, they went to a lot of other doctors, but they come and sit in front of you as if they expect the doctor they are sitting in front of as the only savior that they can last. It's like the last straw hope. Usually that puts the doctor into a lot of pressure. The doctor thinks, oh, when am I going to be the next in her doctor shopping list? And she goes on to the next. But the point is, in spite of all this, one question that we need to ask, you went to so many doctors, it still hasn't worked. Maybe there is something else that we need to look into it. Is it your diet? Is it your uh, work? Is it your emotions? And then, whenever we get such patients, the first 2 3 sessions, consultations, we use to develop our trust and see how the patient's relapse is going on. What are the triggers that are creating the psoriatic arthritis or psoriasis in general? What reduces it? So this patient, the first 2 consultations, I was just prescribing some medicines that will help to improve upon her immune system, and also certain other Ayurvedic medicines to improve her metabolism and immunity and Agni, and her sleep as well. And I gave something for her overthinking anxiety as well. And then after 2 sessions, the third session, I asked her, is there something that you're holding on to yourself? And then I asked her, when are the triggers really happening? Have you ever observed when are the triggers? And then suddenly she started crying and say, whenever my partner wants to get intimate with me, that's when the psoriasis gets worse. And I asked, why would that be? Isn't what's wrong with your partner? Is there any kind of uh, abuse or something going on? No, my partner is the most loving person I've ever had. And then she said, but during my childhood, I had a uncle who used to be sexually abusive. And this abuse put a real scar. And when I told my mother about what the uncle did to me, my mother almost slapped me and told me, don't ever tell this to her father. Because she was worried if the father comes to know, maybe there could be some real violent attack at the home, and then the uncle's life could be at stake. So, in order to protect her, mother did not know how to do that. And then the child felt very unsafe. And then she started seeing, okay, if my mother's elder brother or younger brother, the brother is not able to take care of me, how am I able to trust any man? So this question starts popping up. And then one of the ways she protected herself was the psoriasis. So whenever the psoriasis came, somewhere the the partner felt, oh my god, maybe now you need your space. So this disease was like a great protection mechanism that the body itself created. So many times when you ask a patient, sometimes that disease is a great protection mechanism for not doing what they actually wanted. I'm not saying in all cases, but in some cases, in many cases which are quite chronic in nature, which has been unaddressed for a long time, somewhere there is this unaddressed fear that is creating. So here in Kerala, in Malayalam, we have this saying, and if I translate it, it goes like this: when a cat falls on a boiling water and it gets burnt, and it is so afraid of that boiling water, every time it sees, even if it sees normal room temperature water, the memories of the burns will come back and it will run away from that water. The same method, that is what is happening here. This analogy I also give for allergies, which we will discuss it in another episode. But the point is, the fact that water got that cat burned, any water will also create that. That's a wrong connection of dots. And here, what is happening here is, this patient who got abused and came to a conclusion, I cannot trust men, because one incident like this happened. But it was a very serious incident. But because it was not addressed and the girl was not given confidence, you can actually be safe, and nobody was there to protect her. This disease was her protection mechanism. So instead of realizing, you actually don't need that disease to feel safe. You have your own voice to speak up. You have your own resources to speak up. You have other methods to protect yourself. And when you realize that, that is again how we use emotional intelligence to heal a problem. So once you give that patient, you really don't need this disease. You just need to learn to speak better. You need to learn to stand up for yourself. Because this disease is what is standing up for yourself, for herself, and this disease is what is speaking for herself. Till then, she didn't know. And that is one of the ways of giving. In Ayurveda, we call it di dhairyam atma di vijnanam. That way, it really helps with that. So this is the way we can help patients to understand emotional intelligence is very important. So some of the practices that we can do to improve our emotional health, one is prioritizing your sleep. Why I say prioritize your sleep? Every time I see somebody anxious, I see somebody having difficulty to have good normal thinking emotions, one thing, it will always start with their sleep disorders. And the sleep disorder, it's like, what is for sleep disorder or mental health? I think it's like chicken and egg. So usually when people prioritize their sleep, it's just one of the aspects. I'm not saying it will solve all the problems, but usually when you prioritize your sleep, this will have a huge impact in getting better at your emotional intelligence. That's one thing. Second thing, get into spirituality. Read books on spirituality. Why I say spirituality? If you take the all the essence of spirituality, it talks about you are beyond your body and mind. There is something that is beyond your body and physical body and mind. And why is that so important? Because we all have this fear of death, and that's a very important fear of death, and this is inevitable. But when you work on, anytime anything can happen, and there is a part of you, even after your death, there is a part of you that will be alive. And pondering over that is giving you some kind of confidence. It's a very powerful confidence, in fact. Yes, it will happen, but there is a thing that is beyond this. And you'll also realize things are temporary. So having this knowledge and this wisdom is a powerful toolkit to deal with the imbalances that you will be experiencing in your world. So, this is one. Another thing is definitely practicing pranayama. When you do pranayama, what happens is your deep breath, this will have a huge impact on dealing with different situations that are happening. See, when I breathe deeply, I'm feeling more relaxed. When I breathe very quickly, I'm feeling overwhelmed. So, when you consciously put yourself to breathe deeply, okay, maybe things are going not so well, but suddenly you realize, why should I get worried? And you give it a benefit of doubt. And your ability to give benefit of doubt in situations where normally a person who is not emotionally strong can get stressed, you have an upper hand and you get better there. So, prioritizing your sleep, reading about spirituality, whatever is the best spiritual book that you have access to, and practicing pranayama, and also improving your communication with yourself. Learn to communicate better. Sometimes mantra chanting is good. Mantra is another kind of communication. Gayatri mantra, it talks about how to improve the clarity that you need in your life. And sometimes words of affirmations. These are also very powerful methods. And in some people, I always recommend to do yoga nidra. Yoga nidra is a very powerful, it's more like hypnosis. And I've seen so many patients. When I say so many patients, let's say about more than 100 patients in my practice, just by doing proper hypnosis, they were able to improve the quality of their sleep. And by improving the quality of their sleep, a lot of their hormonal issues could be reversed. And that impacted their overall well being. And the same way, many people were able to get rid of their phobias. And they were able to talk better to themselves and have a better sense of well being. This better sense of well being is very important foundation for your overall well being. So that is why improve the quality of your sleep, read books on spirituality, invest in reading more about spirituality, that there is an energy inside of you that is beyond your body and mind, and also practicing pranayama, and also doing some exercise. Movement plays a very important role in your emotional health. Doing yoga or doing weightlifting or doing exercise, this is very important on a daily basis. So all of this, when you put it together, this will have an impact on your overall emotional health. Is not just, oh, don't be lazy, you need to think positive. No, sometimes thinking positive can also be toxic if you not do it in the right way. So, knowing the reality, but at the same time, seeing what must I do next in the right action, right direction. This is where emotional health also comes into play. So, when you do all of this put together, this is how you improve your overall quality of life. And then what happens when you are more relaxed and having a better sense of yourself, you attract better relationships in your life. You have better habits in your life. Your ability to say no to unhealthy things gets better, and you'll have better intuition with your own self. And today, you see, mental health is a big problem, and that big problem is because we have left the whole mental health to the biomedicine. Now, when I say biomedicine, if you have a mental health problem, you need to go and see a psychiatrist or a psychologist. And there is a social stigma or taboo attached to, oh, I am on an antidepressant, or I'm going to a psychiatrist, or I'm going to a therapist. This has been stigmatized and it's very dangerous. This stigma and this taboo is one of the biggest curse of the current humanity that we have to overcome. Many people are going through a lot of emotional health issues, and one of the best thing is maybe your mother or your friend or maybe your dog or maybe your neighbor or maybe your best friend whom you can open up and speak about your issues. This is where it helps. And when you talk, what happens is, it's not that the other person is like a therapist. When you talk, you are also realizing, oh my god, maybe I have the answers to my own solutions, maybe I'm just overthinking. But in some cases, please do understand, intervention is very important. Sometimes, recently, I know a patient who got diagnosed with a severe autoimmune conditions, and immediately that person went into a depression. So at that time, saying maybe read into spirituality, having a good sleep. No, at that time, that person, okay, maybe that will help. But at that point of time, maybe a psychiatrist intervention with maybe an antidepressant or some chemical intervention is a must. But when I see a large number of sample patients that I have come across, many of them are taking medications where they could just reverse it by changing their lifestyle. And many of them who should take the intervention, because they think they are afraid of the taking the medicines, they don't go there and they suffer with that problems. So I think the future of science and research should be on how can I improve people's health. Where should I put the intervention of medicine and where should I put the intervention of non-invasive therapies? So this will be a great study to do so that we are able to see that. According to me, if a person is going through a lot of emotional health problems, if we can correct the sleep and this changes, means no need for medical intervention. But in spite, or maybe they, in spite of doing whatever is required, but their sleep is not being able to addressed, then maybe an intervention is very important. So that's why whenever we get patients in Sitaram, first things we ask is, how is your quality of sleep? Are you able to sleep well? Do you struggle to fall asleep? Some people say, no, I sleep, but I wake up in between. So here we focus on improving the quality of sleep first. And then parallelly we focus on improving the Agni metabolism. And then we do the Panchakarma if required. So this protocol has helped a lot in helping people's overall well-being, immunity, metabolism. They lose weight much quicker. Or if they are having difficulty to put on weight, they gain weight when they feel safe in the body. So like this mental health, emotional intelligence, that feeling of safety with your nervous system. And why is it called nervous system? It gets nervous very quickly. And all of this plays a very important role. And this is going to be the future of healthcare that we need to put our money and research and curiosity into it.